Welcome, everybody, to another episode, the fourth episode of Down to the Studs, my podcast. Me being Brett Stein, me being a real estate agent, but again, for the fourth time, this is not a real estate podcast. It's a people podcast because I love people. And thank you, Daniel Steinberg, Steiny, the original Steiny, not me, for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much. Pleasure, buddy.
Thanks so much, Brett. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. Happy New Year. Just to start off nice and light before we dive in deep and I pick you apart with some tough questions. How was your holiday season?
The holidays were good. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back. I'm excited to see what the new year brings. The holiday season was good. Could have been longer, I'm sure, for everyone else. But what about yourself?
Well, it's funny you say that. It felt like an eternity for me in the real estate game, at least for me. I guess everybody's different, but for me, from like December 14th till probably even next week, I've been sitting on my couch watching too many movies, too many TV shows, unbelievable stuff going on right now on Netflix, Disney Prime. I watched Captain Marvel last night, trying to catch up before I see Spider-Man. So it's been a long, great couch holiday for me.
So you took the relaxation to another level rolling into 2022.
Oh, 100%. I'm going to need a new couch by the end of this thing because there's just a giant dent where I sink in and watch my movies. But enough of the light stuff. Daniel Steinberg, Steiny, Lawbrokr. And you know what? You did come bearing gifts, and you said there's another one on the way, which is just going above and beyond. I was thinking if you were going to bring something because everyone else has brought something, so the pressure was on.
I was nervous because I've listened to all 3 episodes, and I didn't come with bagels. I didn't come with the pantry kit or anything like that. I didn't come with a hat.
But you came with coffees as
I had to come with a coffee, which is at least a sweatshirt.
And it took some convincing to get me this coffee because I'm pretty sure I said, no, I'm fine, I'll make a coffee. And you said to me, you know what? In these fancy red holiday Starbucks cup, coffees always taste better. And that's our first sponsor, Starbucks. Quick plug. They're not paying me yet, but maybe eventually.
I think after this episode. So
Lawbrokr, the logo on this awesome purple sweater. Tell me about it. What is it?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Lawbrokr, it's my new venture. We're launching in a couple of weeks, and it's a spin on a traditional legal marketplace. So I've been in legal tech at the largest legal tech company in North America for the past 2 years. Working and running our partnerships division. And what I wanted to do and build was I found this gap between how do we simplify the accessibility to legal services. I'm sure you get the chance to work with your clients and lawyers all the time, actually every time you make a transaction, and simplifying the process of a complex situation is something that needed to innovate on. And what we wanted to do at Lawbrokr was mimic everyday experiences that consumers have and transition that into law, which is something that people don't always think about. It's not something that you always do. When you think of a lawyer, it's usually when you need one. So we wanted to cultivate and build this business to consumer brand that people can attach themselves to and honestly make legal more humanized and fun. We're just trying to make it a little bit easier on awesome. Everyone.
Because it's not so fun right now. There's not a lot of fun lawyer. I mean, I have a bunch of lawyer friends, so if you're watching, and you probably are, I apologize, but you're not that fun. So I think, and what's really cool about your approach is that you're trying to, change, I guess, the perception of most lawyers, right? You don't want them just to be, the people in a suit and tie who are charging you crazy billable hours. You want them to be, your friendly neighbor, the guy walking his dog down the street, your everyday person, right?
Yeah, we don't want people to feel like transactions when they go through legal. Everyone wants these experiences, and legal has to be the same, and it needs to innovate to be that. So we want to modernize legal. We want to interact with people that are modern law firms that go above and beyond and cultivate a strong customer experience, and that's our focus.
Right, and you're not a lawyer.
I am not a lawyer.
Let's get that straight. You're not a lawyer. No legal advice is being given in this podcast.
I was thinking of bringing maybe a call to a lawyer as my gift, but I figured that wouldn't be so fun.
No. But although I would love to hear, your pitch and all that stuff, because it is interesting trying to break people out of their traditions, right? Like that's the biggest struggle as I readjust my hair here, is getting people. I was watching the Monday Night Football. It is the new year. It's January 4th. Monday Night Football was last night. My Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to keep their season alive. So I'm watching, and all of a sudden this commercial comes up, and I don't know if you've seen any of the Questrade commercials and you're still using Dad's Guy,
Oh, yeah.
like all that stuff, which is amazing. It's amazing marketing. And I think it was like this son telling his dad that he switched to Questrade, and like thought his dad was going to be so disappointed, and his dad was like, "Son, I also switched to Questrade," and it was like happy ending. So it's and I was thinking about that in real estate. It's like, imagine a commercial where you know, the young kid, his dad wants him to buy a house, and he wants him to use his buddy, the older, you know, 70-year-old agent who, you know, has grown with the times and is a dinosaur and a fossil. And, you know, the kid wants to use the new up and coming real estate agent such as myself. It's really hard to break people out of that tradition of, oh, well, I used him for my last 5 houses, even though maybe he's too old now to know what's going on in the market and to actually be able to help me. It's really hard to break those people from tradition. So how do you do that? How do you even start to do that, especially with lawyers?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I think it all comes back to people. Isn't that why we're here today? Relationships. But no, traditionally, similar to real estate, legal is a referral game, and people have to cultivate and build relationships and ask their friend or cousin or parent of what lawyer is right for them. But what's so nuanced and different about legal is legal governs our society. It's something that you need every single day, and sometimes you don't need it. But what's so interesting is 77% of legal needs are actually unmet. And that's because people don't traditionally know lawyers. Although the perception is you could get a referral, you could ask this person or that person, it's expensive, it's hard to break down barriers, and it's hard to find the right person for you. And that's why we built this business. We want to simplify that approach. So right. When we're trying to break down those barriers, it's really honing in on what are the everyday consumer interactions, what's modernized in our economy and society from a technology perspective. How do we cultivate and build that approach so that people trust us? Because similar to real estate, there are thousands, if not millions, of people building real estate brands. Brett Stein Realtor Group, right? Like that is one brand. Same thing with legal. There's a million solo and small practitioners out there. Each one of those is their own brand, but people forget those small brands because in such a complex situation, they're nervous and they're scared. And the only thing they can remember is, oh my God, I just got fired. Employment Lawyer Toronto, and right. That's what they're building and looking for. And
then at that point, I guess, and it's similar in any service industry, when you type out on Google Employment Lawyer Toronto, you're basically just picking whoever's paying the most for their SEO advertising, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean they're the best lawyer for you. It doesn't necessarily mean that because I mean a lawyer who's maybe not getting enough business, maybe he's got a he's been going to Morton's too many times and he needs to make a little bit extra money. For all you know, they could be saying, oh, do you do employment law? And maybe he's done it once, yeah. Right? And he's not an expert, but he does it anyways. And then, it ends up not working out in the best interest of his client, right? So I feel like with your service, like, and you're, using all different aspects of law, right? Like,
yeah.
And if somebody needs an employment lawyer, if somebody needs a real estate lawyer, whatever it may be, you can direct them to the right people based on their expertise, right?
Exactly. And I think what's so interesting about Google's model or other traditional directories, whether it be through legal or somewhere else, is a 5-star review means a lot and goes a far way on Amazon or when you're going to the restaurant on Ossington right next to your house, right? It's something that you're so accustomed to and you know what that means. But in legal, because it's not something you've done before and you search for a lawyer 1 to 3 times in your life, you're not so in tune to what that 5-star review means, and that's the bigger issue. So how do you determine who is the best lawyer for you? There's no comparison. What makes me better than you and vice versa? So it's all around building this customer experience, and that's what we're focused on.
And that's really interesting, truly interesting that, it's not only... we're talking about right now the benefits for the client, the benefits for the customer is, finding the right lawyer for them. But then again, like I said before, getting these lawyers to change tradition and try and partner up with you, it's helping these lawyers as well because they're getting more leads, right? They're getting more clients. They're getting, it's almost like even though you're not a branding operation, it's almost like you're branding these lawyers as well.
Yeah, no, we are. And I think it all comes back to diversification of your marketing spend. And I think real estate agents have done a very good job with that, and legal is transitioning towards that. But we're in this era of creator models, right? You have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have all these different areas to build your brand and diversify in a magnitude of different areas. You shouldn't just be on Lawbrokr or Google or Instagram or Facebook. You should be everywhere, because you need to be where the customers are, because they come from a magnitude of different places. And I think that's what we're trying to focus in on from the lawyer perspective, is how do we educate the market on diversification, driving demand,
Right.
and flowing a consistent amount of leads.
Right. And again, I've said this a couple times on this show. It's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast, because I have people on who are way smarter than I am and who say things that go way over my head, but they probably don't go over your head if you're listening. But it's super, super interesting to have people here who have, taken that step to start their own business and to, do something outside of the box, especially in a time like this in COVID. So I'll kind of ask you, where did this start? How did it start? Where did the idea come from? Go back as far as you want and take us through.
As far as I want. Well, it stems from always wanting to have that itch of entrepreneurship and doing my own thing. It goes all the way back till forever. And I always knew there would be this point in time where I wanted to do that. And that's how I garnered my career. I started in accounting, and it was really to understand how do CEOs and executives operate businesses and become a strong operator.
Did you know that, like, when you were going into accounting, did you know that, like, okay, this is going to be my journey, I'm going to learn some things here? Or was it kind of like, I don't know what to fucking do, accounting sounds all right?
I looked at each step of my career as like a learning opportunity. So accounting was more to understand the operations of a business as a whole. So I actually did. I went in with that mindset. But fun story just for the crowd, because maybe people are listening and they're younger and trying to figure out their careers. I quit accounting before I started. And it was because I found this realization of I need to be passionate about what I do. I need to love what I do to be successful. And if I want to be an entrepreneur, I'll hire an accountant. I have a great baseline and a good education there, but it wasn't something I cared about or cared to do. So I actually quit before I started, and then went into sales so that I could have that baseline success of how do you sell yourself? How do you sell
What do you mean
business?
you quit before, like, once you graduated?
Once I graduated in fourth year, I had this realization of I don't want to do this.
Okay.
I don't want to audit for 3 years
Right.
and commit to doing something that I'm not really so in tune to wanting to do.
Fuck, accountants are important.
They
That's
are.
what I'm realizing now with my own business and, trying to manage my own funds. I mean, if you're a good accountant out there. But I do have a great accountant, so I love you, Howie. And okay, so, I've talked about that a lot of times on this show, school, and it's not for everybody. And especially for a lot of entrepreneurs, I feel like the trend is that school necessarily wasn't for them, and because they weren't doing something they were passionate about. What do you say to kids who are in school right now, in accounting and stuff like that, and they know they don't want to do it, and you battled through and finished and you graduated, whereas I took the easy way out and bailed out, what would you say to them?
It's dependent per person, right? I was the kind of person that would always think about school and going through the motions to go through the motions, because, and we'll get into this story in a bit, but it's all about timing to become an entrepreneur. If you want to become an entrepreneur, you can't control the uncontrollables, and you can't just jump into something to want to do it. And
Right.
We'll get into that as part of the story of why I became an entrepreneur and when, but battle through it if you're there right now and you can do it. And I think it's always good to have a baseline. I'm a big proponent on learning to, failure is a great way to learn. So I don't necessarily think that school teaches you all of the nuances of how do you run your own business or how do you do specific things in specific service industries like accounting, but it is a good background to understand the scope of work ethic. Right. And getting you to that next stage.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, I'm not an entrepreneur. You can look at me kind of as an entrepreneur. I kind of have my own business, but I'm a real estate agent. That's my job. But you're not just, unless you have the idea for a business when you're 18 years old, then you can't just drop out of school and go do that idea, right? Like you have to have the idea first. And a lot of times in order to have that idea, you have to have that different experience, which in your case could have been going to school. So at what point you graduated, then what did you do?
Yeah, so I left accounting and right before I started, or right in fourth year, I ended up doing this short stint at some sort of short stint entrepreneurial type venture. And then I went into sales because I wanted to have a baseline of how to sell myself, how to sell a company, how to interact with people. Always goes back to this people podcast. It's so important to have that sort of threshold of how do you have conversations. It's not like you and I were friends like the three others before this conversation, but we networked, we had conversations, and we're people, and we want to have this conversation, right? And I think that's a super important and invaluable thing to have in your toolkit when being an entrepreneur or just in life in general. So did that for a couple of years, and then I moved into partnerships because for me, like I said before, sales was more of a means to an end. It was that next stage of learning.
With Clio?
This was at a different company called Influitive, which was all around advocacy, marketing, and community building. So I had this basis of how do you drive demand and reviews and reputation management in B2B software companies.
Okay.
And then from there, I had the opportunity. I always wanted to go into partnerships. Love watching the benefits of magnitude of two different parties, not just selling something and saying, here's your support staff. So I ended up going into partnerships, and someone that I was going to work for at the same company had gone to Clio, which is a legal tech company out of Vancouver, global now. And they brought me on to run our partnerships division. It was sort of this own lonely island. And an aspect of partnerships is sales, but it's really around building out relationships and helping people succeed in different forms.
So when you say, and again, I preface this by everyone who comes on this podcast is a lot smarter than I am. When you say partnerships, like break that down for me. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. Partnerships is really relationship building, is in its smallest
with who?
form.
Like who are you building relationships
That's who it
for
is.
Clio specifically?
Yeah, so there's two types of aspects of partnerships. So at Clio, I managed both. On the one side, it was working with service partners that supported law firms. So you can think about accountants, law firm consultants, marketing and SEO folks, and IT consultants, people that naturally would help support and service and stand up law firms to help grow their businesses, including leveraging Clio as a product as their operating system. That's one form of partnerships. It's typically referral based. They drive business to Clio and vice versa.
Right.
On the other side of partnerships, Clio had this thing called the app ecosystem, which was a model where every law firm operates differently, which means that Clio is this out-of-the-box software that you can plug into your law practice, but when you're a 5-person firm, you operate a lot differently than a 100-person firm, which means that you use different technologies around your business that need to plug into your operating system, like QuickBooks or reporting tools or things like that. So that was our app ecosystem. We had this thing called an open API where different tool sets would plug into Clio for your firm to operate and leverage to become a better law firm or operationally efficient. So I managed the relationships across all of those app partners, which I guess now I'm a technology myself and I could be that in the future. But I specifically worked with the likes of like QuickBooks, Microsoft, Zoom, and Google.
Right.
And that's where this project stemmed from, was this Google project that I worked on.
What I think is like the most interesting question and like the most insightful question is, you had this job at Clio. Sounds like a great job. Sounds like you're building relationships. You know, how long were you there?
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years. You know, you're setting yourself up for maybe a future at a big tech company that's, you know, not going out of business anytime soon. Like, how do you make the decision to make that jump to do your own thing rather than stay on board and get along for the ride and get a nice, beautiful 6-figure salary? And
I think it comes down to the type of person that you are and the will to win. I think you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable if you want to be an entrepreneur. And part of those are hard decisions. I've made hard decisions for a very long time. I quit a Big 4 accounting firm because I thought it didn't make sense for me to do, and everyone thought I was crazy until they became an accountant and realized the hardships of being an accountant. And being an entrepreneur doesn't come with easy decisions. I think, you know, you've had 2 entrepreneurs or 3 entrepreneurs on this podcast already prior to me, and each one of their stories had different difficult decisions throughout their milestones to getting to where they were today. And I think it helps build a thick, tough skin for you as an entrepreneur to make those tough and hard decisions. So for me, I found an opportunity, and I found this gap closing of technology within legal had this sort of closing gap, because legal was probably a 10-year gap before COVID until people realized the importance of cloud technology and computing and legal that needed to be adopted. And I wanted to take the chance. And I found that was the right time. I've thought of, and this goes back to our conversation a couple minutes ago, but I told you I want to be an entrepreneur forever. The amount of ideas that have been on my notepad have been numerous. My lead investor, my advisor, I pitched him on an idea probably 7 years ago, and he said, no, it's not the right time. It's not the right business, and it's not worthwhile. Go, dip your toes in sales, go learn, go educate yourself from the business perspective so that you could truly succeed when the time is right. So it goes back to, although you itch to be an entrepreneur, if you do, it's not always about rushing into things.
Right. Well, it seems like, from what I see, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur right now. Like it's the hottest thing ever. Quit your job and start your own business. Like they're calling it now the Great Resignation, right? Like
I like that.
Everybody is quitting their job. Like I think record numbers. I don't have the stats here because Jason's probably on TikTok over there. But everybody's quitting their jobs, whether they're going full time into their side hustle or I don't know what they're doing, but it's such a strange time. When did you leave Clio? Was it during COVID?
It was during COVID. I left Clio in October. I had quit a couple months before to help transition.
But you had this plan all along. You were not part of the Great Resignation. Who was
no, I wasn't.
COVID, screw this.
I started the Great Resignation.
You started it. You started it. Right here, everybody. Daniel Steinberg started the Great Resignation. Big businesses all over the world. You know who to go after.
I did quit in COVID, but I had been building this concept of Lawbrokr for over a year when I found this gap. And it was, like I said, it came down to when the opportunity made sense to actually resign and move forward with it. So right. It wasn't on a whim. It was something that I had a lot of research on, and I continued to learn and educated myself on, is this an appropriate business to go forward with? Because right. Everyone can be an entrepreneur, but at the end of the day, you really need to understand the market and the market that you're in. And it's hard to just spin up an app or a technology company if you haven't done the research or the due diligence or taken the time to actually educate yourself on it.
For sure. And the cool thing about today, is that, obviously all different sizes of businesses are all different. There's billion-dollar businesses. There's businesses that don't make any money. But in this day and age, it's so easy to become an entrepreneur because all you need is a camera and a couple microphones, and boom, you have a podcast. And now you're doing your podcast every day, and maybe you're getting more views, and maybe you're getting some money and getting some sponsorships. Like, it's so easy to create content and to not work for like big box firms and companies and sit there on a 9 to 5 when you can make close to the same money doing your own thing. So I think COVID has given a lot of people an awesome opportunity. It's been terrible, don't get me wrong, but I think there are a lot of people who are in a better place moving forward once we do get out of this thing, in a position to maybe be happier because they're doing their own thing and they're not so focused on being at their big corporate firms and having a lot of pressures on them. Okay, so you have this idea, you've been planning this idea for a year. Now, how do you go from having an idea to actually having a real company? And
a couple sweatshirts, you mean?
Exactly, a couple sweatshirts. And like, I know you did some funding. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Like I said before, it's all around learning by failing for me. And I don't think anyone has not many people are on their second entrepreneurial venture, especially the younger demographic that might be part of the Great Resignation. So sometimes you just have to learn, you have to read, you have to talk to the right people, you have to network, and you have to educate yourself on what do I do next. And there's probably been some crazy decisions that I've made that are completely off the rails for one person, but are normalized for others. And I think part of that is going through the motions and figuring it out on your own. That is entrepreneurship in itself. So for me, I did quit. We raised $785,000 in our pre-seed. And it is a lot of money. The type of business that we're in is consumer driven.
How do you raise that money? Like, are you just going door to door with a hat and like everyone's giving you $1?
A little bit. Yeah. Like a UNICEF box.
Yeah. So like, but really, like how?
It's difficult, and it starts with a lot of conversations, and it starts with finding the right person to advise you and lead you through the conversation. So I was lucky enough to have this great advisor and people that I've had conversations with in the past, because like I said, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I'm a big proponent on people and networking and honing in on relationships and keeping those forever. And it's all about pitching yourself, selling the vision, selling the dream, selling why you're the right person for this company. A lot of people that bet on pre-seed companies. So for everyone watching, and I think I've told you, Brett, like Lawbrokr, when we raised capital, was zero. No business. It was an idea, and it was myself and a technical co-founder. And when people bet on pre-seed companies like that, they're really betting on the entrepreneur and the idea. But the idea behind it is it's a gamble, which means they're betting on you to figure it out, whether it's Lawbrokr as it was when I pitched the business, or if it's Lawbrokr in 5 years from now, which is completely different. They're betting on you as an entrepreneur to figure it out. So it's a lot of people saying no. It's a lot of conversations on LinkedIn, and it's always about getting something from something. So
like, is this with like you're saying conversations on LinkedIn? Like, are you like finding high net worth people who like to invest in different companies, venture capitalist funds, whatever it may be? Like, are you finding these people and then reaching out to them?
Yeah, like I would search on LinkedIn some people write Daniel Steinberg Lawbrokr. Some people write Brett Stein angel investor, and right. You find those people, or you start to build this network. And once you have one conversation, it's sort of like this domino effect, which is most people say no. For the record, it's not easy to raise capital. A lot of people say no. It's not like it's, yep, I'm in.
Right.
And the important thing is that with every no that you get, it's important to turn that into a yes, which means you might not be interested in Lawbrokr, but you probably know someone that might be.
Right.
Is there someone else that you think I should be talking to? Is there someone that you know that has invested in a legal tech company before, or that has done pre-seed, or that is a high net worth individual? So it's always important to turn that no and spin it into this domino effect of how do I build my network so that I can raise capital from people that think this is the right fit.
Right. And a really interesting thing that you hit on before is the long-term relationships and keeping those relationships. And I think like that's something that's been so important to me over the years is, never burning bridges. Like literally never burning bridges. That's like almost my golden rule. I hate into my core when, I don't have a relationship with someone, or I feel that somebody doesn't like me for some certain reason. I want to talk to that person, shake them and say why and how can I fix it, right? Because
who wouldn't like you?
And listen, it happens to the best of us. But and for whatever reason, I don't know what it is inside me, that's like my number one thing that I'm always thinking about is like I'm lying in bed thinking like, oh my God, did I not text this person back? Did they hate me? And although it can be a flaw in some instances, it's helped me preserve these relationships. And I'm not doing it for a reason of business and real estate, because I've been doing it since I was, a lot younger.
Yeah.
And when you have those networks and you've been kind of building your own brand as someone who at least tries to be a good person, doesn't always make the right decisions, and sure can step on some people's toes from time to time, but if you're trying to be a good person and people can see that, then I think people are going to want to work with you, right? Yeah. Like especially in this day and age where there's so many ideas. Like I've been talking to a lot of people who have funds or are starting companies and all this stuff, especially with this podcast going on, and I think the numbers are like 1 in 30 of those opportunities that you invest in hit.
Oh yeah.
And like if you invest in 30 companies, you're giving yourself an opportunity to maybe make money. But if you're just somebody who's like, oh, this seems like a good idea, and one of them, like the chances are so low. So like you talked about that winning mentality. How do you look at those numbers and be like, okay, how, like there's pressure on you now, right? All these people who have given you money, their money, and you need to turn that around and help them make a buck, right? And you make a buck as well. How do you handle that pressure?
Yeah, I think you have to take it in strides. So the first thing that's really important to note is when you're going out to raise capital, everyone knows that the chances are 1 in 30. And if they don't know that, and that's why sometimes it's important to not take money from friends or a couple $1,000s here or there when you're raising close to $1 million, because you don't want to always be consistently talking about it at dinner or things like that, because it takes time and it could take 5 years. So everyone that typically invests in pre-seed rounds or angel investment rounds should have the mindset of that's a sunk cost. That's something that's in the back door. Hopefully you call me in 2 or 3 years from now and it was the right investment, or 5 years from now. But that doesn't eliminate the fact that you have people's money and it's pressure. One thing that my advisor had told me was, and my lead investor was, let's work on not going bankrupt. Each milestone, it's great advice, right? Everyone thinks, okay, you have close to $1 million now. Does that mean you're a $20 million business, or will you be a $20 million business? And the answer is you can't think like that. You have to go with each strides and go with each punch and try and go from there.
And that's a huge thing in my business as well, is setting expectations, right? I'm sure a lot of people go to start their company and they're like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. It's going to make you so much money, this, that, and the other. And I'm sure that can turn off a lot of people, right? Because they know, you know, the odds of this if this person doesn't understand that the odds of this happening are low, then maybe they're not going to be able to manage this whole business. So you being able to manage expectations, you know, I think is a huge part of being an entrepreneur and asking for people's money. We're going to take a quick break. I'm starving, gonna have a little snacky snack, and supposedly I'm being told we only have a couple minutes left on this recording thing, so we're gonna reset it. We're gonna come back. We did take some COVID tests, so we're gonna take a look at those and show the camera that we're both negative, so everybody knows that we are being responsible. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. This segment of the podcast, the second half, is brought to you by Abbott Testing, and we've just shown you that we are both negative, so we are exhibiting good practices here.
Good practice, COVID, good vibes.
And especially before everything shuts down again. And I mean, I think things are supposed to close down tomorrow. Restaurants, gyms, all that stuff. So it's definitely going to be a depressing time for a lot of people. But, you know, that's hopefully I can still find a way to have people on, whether it's testing and stuff like that, because you know, everyone needs something to do and something to listen to, and I love introducing people like yourself. Like we had never met.
No, we haven't.
Unless I was blackout drunk at a Western party or something like that, and we met, but I don't think we'd ever met. You actually called my girlfriend Jacqueline, and you wanted to connect because obviously law and real estate, everything is interconnected, and I'm very thankful for that and thankful for you coming on. I know we were talking a little bit about funding, and that's awesome. You said $785,000, right?
Yep.
That is unbelievable, honestly. And you know, I commend you for that and congratulations. But obviously, this is just the beginning.
Yes.
And you have a long way to go. So tell us kind of, where do you see Lawbrokr? I don't care. You want to fast forward 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. Where do you see it? What is it doing? What void is it fulfilling? And how are you seen in the general marketplace? Yeah.
Wow. Outlook of 5 years, right? I was just saying how we have to take things one step at a time, get that platform out first. No, for us, really what it comes down to is building a consumer brand. So a lot of people in legal, especially legal tech, think about their customer as the lawyer, because at the end of the day, that's the paying customer. But in a marketplace like Lawbrokr's in, it's really important to think about the flywheel effect of what makes those lawyers pay money. And at the end of the day, it's consumer interest and consumer growth. So it's really important to have this mindset of consumer focus. And that's where we're focused on. And we're trying to be legal's first customer experience platform powered by lawyers. What that does is it mimics the types of experiences that people are used to in their everyday lives. Uber, DoorDash, Shopify e-commerce stores. These are all brands you know, but behind all those brands are corporations and businesses that you order food from, or they are sole drivers, or they are e-commerce shops that aren't in your mind every single day, but they're powered by these corporations that you know very well.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to mimic, so that when you think of a lawyer, because it's not often, and there are those stresses and complexities, you're thinking about what is that brand that I align with? And it's all around humanizing legal and modernizing this experience so that people can take legal in bite-sized chunks. So when I come back to what is Lawbrokr going to be, I think we're going to be a consumer insights platform that helps connect consumers with lawyers. So not everyone needs legal help. You won't come to Lawbrokr just to get legal help. You're going to come to Lawbrokr to educate yourself on what is the matter that I'm trying to solve, and do I need legal support for that? And I think that's a really good evolution of what Lawbrokr will become.
And it's cool because I know, at least I've seen in commercials, and I think there are a couple, websites in the States, trying to connect consumers to the right real estate agent. Mm-hmm. Right. And they have like real estate reviews and different expertise, and you can go on this website and look at 1,000 realtors, and by reading their reviews and by seeing what kind of people they are and what they specialize in, you can choose your real estate agent. And I mean, I've said this so many times, people decide on their realtor, it takes less time than them going to the store and picking a pair of shoes. Like it's crazy the amount of people who meet someone on the first meeting, and they sit down and they're wearing a suit and tie, and they whip open their binder and they say, here, sign this buyer representation agreement. That's going to link you to me.
Yep.
For the next 6 months, and you can't use any other agent except for me. And they go, oh, where do I sign?
And that's why you keep doing your hair, because you want that good profile picture.
Exactly. And it's with real estate, like, you can see that it makes sense because it's so much more, you might buy or sell a house 5 times in 10 years.
Yeah.
But with being a lawyer, you don't think about it as much because you don't need that service as often. But when you do, you need it bad, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you're working with someone who has your best interests.
And that's what we're trying to eliminate, right? There are a ton, this, for the record, this isn't like legal's first marketplace. There are tons of online directories. We're just spinning on its head a little bit and taking a customer first approach. There are tons of marketplaces that are modernized yellow pages where there's hundreds of lawyer profiles, and the consumer has to pick up the phone and call each one of them. But the unfortunate reality is that a lot of them aren't available at the time that you call them. So you usually go with the first person that answers the phone, which is exactly how you just mirrored what they do in real estate. And that's what we're trying to eliminate. So for us, we're trying to eliminate the complexities of consumers figuring out who the right lawyer is, because I don't think I could ask you what makes a good lawyer. There's not this golden nugget question that says this lawyer is better than the other. Mm-hmm. Most people's psychological metric is, oh, this lawyer is more expensive, they're better. That's not always the case.
Right. But even a referral, you asked me for a lawyer. I could know a lawyer. Maybe, you're going through a divorce and, a divorce lawyer.
Yep.
And I know one, and I know he does well, but I don't know the actual work he does. I don't know, how he operates with his clients, and I'm just throwing out a referral, and they trust me. So, they're going to work with that person. It doesn't necessarily mean that that person is right for what they're actually trying to do.
That's right.
So I think, like, if we're really trying to put the customer first, put the client first, and the best way to do that is to make sure they get the best service possible. And if somebody's looking for a condo in, I don't know, Barrie,
yeah,
I'm probably not going to be the guy. If you ask me to do it, I'm going to go do it, but I'm going to have to drive an hour and a half every single time we're going out to showings. I don't know the general marketplace necessarily. I may not be able to swallow my pride and say, I'm going to do this for you. I'm the best one for the job, and really convince you of that. But in reality, I'm not. Yeah. Right. So this is almost laying the cards out on the table. Are you going to be able to go on the site and like choose from and be like, oh, this guy's good looking, I want to use him? Or is it more so like, these are your needs? Okay, we'll assign you someone.
Yeah, that's right. So we're a recommendation platform, which means if I had to bring it into light that a lot of your listeners probably know of, we're like Bumble, which is lawyers make the first move. Shout
Bumble.
out Bumble for this segment. But the lawyers make the first move based off, do they know that I can help this customer in a timely matter and I can support their legal needs based off my legal expertise? Because consumers at first glance, whether it be through Google or other legal directories, don't know that that lawyer can actually support them, which means they're picking up the phone, wasting 25, 30 minutes of both their times, and then saying, this wasn't right for me, sorry, hang up. That's what we want to eliminate. The first stage of the complexity in the legal process of how do I even find the lawyer in such a high stress situation?
Right. Yeah, and again, comparing it to real estate, a lot of people that I work with, the ones who do their due diligence, I mean, how long are they sitting down and having conversations with realtors trying to figure out which one's the best one? Some of them, as much as a lot of them don't, and they go really quick to that first one they talk to, a lot of them do, and they take, maybe the time to sell is now, but you're taking a month to find out which real estate agent you should use, and then you're taking a month to find out which contractor you should use to fix up your house, and then by that time maybe the market's cooled down and you've missed out on your opportunity, right? So these platforms, and it's all about convenience, helping people find the service more easily so that they don't have to do the work themselves because they've got all this other shit that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
They have their own companies, they work their own jobs, and I mean, there's in the year 2022, which sounds bananas, the fact that, you know, there's still so much legwork that most people do in order to make these decisions, to hire a lawyer, to hire a real estate agent. Like I think it gives such an opportunity for companies like yourself to grow, and you know, especially if you're doing it in the right way.
Yeah.
One more question that I thought of, because we're talking about raising and $780,000. I'm just thinking, wow, if I had $780,000, I could put a few down payments on a few different properties. Where's that money going? Like, you're an online platform. You know, you're speaking to lawyers and you're trying to get them on board. Like, what is most of your spend?
So this comes back to what I had said earlier, where as an entrepreneur, you have to make difficult decisions that you don't know if they're right or wrong because there's no playbook that says this is where you spend $785,000. So for us, we have to look at and plan for the future growth of what is our company meant to do. And the expectation isn't you need to save the $785,000. You need to use that $785,000 to fuel growth at the end of the day. For us, we're a consumer platform, which means it's super capital intensive. We don't have a revenue stream coming in today because there isn't enough value from a platform perspective to prove to the lawyers yet that they can start providing us a revenue stream. So for us, our biggest focus and our biggest expense was marketing. We brought on a full stack marketing agency that runs our content, our social media, the brand guidelines, the future scope for what Lawbrokr will become from a humanization perspective and a brand building perspective. Other than that, our expenses, funny enough, are a lot around legal fees and startup costs of a business. We have now 3 salaried employees, so we just brought on a lead marketer and UI UX designer because
Awesome.
I'm a big believer in creating strong experiences. I don't go to things that look or feel badly, and I think that's important. And we will probably use the rest of that money from a payroll perspective to bring on the right people at the right time. And that's our focus right now. $785,000 is a lot of money, but it's not going to get us to where we need to be. There will need to be future raises.
Right. That's awesome. I mean, I guess you again, like I said before, you have a long way to go.
Oh yeah.
But you've been through a long process now. To this point, sitting here at Brett Stein of Stein Realty Group's dining room table, if you could go back in time, if you could talk to a past version of yourself, like, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned? What would you say?
Yeah, it's not fair because I think Maya kind of stole what I wanted to say when I was listening to her episode. But it's true. The hardest part about being an entrepreneur, building a tech company is, someone's used this line before, but sprinting to the start line. We haven't even got to that start line yet. And that is such a difficult point in time because especially I'm business focused, right? So I am not the person building the technology behind the scenes, and you're not in control of what that looks like. So patience is really important in order to get to the start line so that you can then continue to run the marathon of being an entrepreneur. So I think just being level-headed and patient from a technology perspective to be able to hit your timelines in a budgetary way is super important, and something that I'd urge, other entrepreneurs to think about when building technology companies.
Right. That's awesome. And again, man, I want to thank you for coming on. I mean, we could go on forever because I have so many questions, and I'm just a curious guy, and I think what you're doing is awesome, and I really, really, really applaud you and all other people who are starting their own businesses and who are doing amazing things. And I want to have you on the podcast. I want to have you back when you're doing your next round of funding, and who knows, maybe you have a little friends and family opportunity there, because I do think it's a great idea, and I think that there should be an easy place for people to go to get any service, right? Like I just got a new car, it's electric, and how the fuck do I get a charger, right? So Tesla has on their website like their electricians.
Yeah.
So that was easy for me. Otherwise, I would have just Googled electricians, and I would have found the whoever is paying the most for that Google advertising, and he could have done a brutal job, right? So I think it's awesome. Congratulations. Keep going. Keep pushing. If you ever need anyone to push the brand or to do some selfie videos or anything like that, I'm happy to do it. And
so we're going to do a collab.
A collab,
Okay.
100%. And Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody. Stay safe. Stay negative. But if you're positive, stay positive, because things will get better. I love ya. We'll see you next time. This has been Down to the Studs with Brett Stein and Steiny, Daniel Steinberg, the original Steiny of Lawbrokr. Supposedly there's more gifts coming in the mail. This is my favorite part of the show. I get gifts. It's amazing.
It's not fair. I might start a podcast for that purpose.
Well, listen, don't call it Down to the Studs.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, buddy.